Hello, my name is Jennifer Gaskins, and I'm a graduate student in clinical psychology at the University of Connecticut. The title of my poster is Same-Sex Domestic Violence Perceptions, the Effects of Gender Role Attitudes, Homonegativity, and Myths. So to provide a little bit of background, the literature or the research has found that domestic violence when it occurs in same-sex relationships is perceived to be less serious than domestic violence when it occurs in heterosexual relationships, despite the fact that it occurs at the exact same rate as heterosexual domestic violence, and it's also equally progressive in the cycle of violence in terms of getting more intense and violent over time. So just as harmful is another way to think of it. So there's been a good amount of literature demonstrating that it's seen as not as serious as heterosexual domestic violence. And with my research, I'm really trying to unpack why. Why does this seem to be minimized when domestic violence occurs in a same-sex relationship? And so several potential explanations that have been proposed for this are gender role attitudes. So maybe people have traditional gender role beliefs. They're more likely to think that women cannot be perpetrators and males can't be victims. Another thing that could be playing out is homonegativity. So individuals could just have negative attitudes towards gays and lesbians, and therefore, because who the violence is happening to is devalued, therefore it's seen as less serious because they don't value them as a person. And finally, also looking at the perpetuation of misconceptions about same-sex domestic violence. So that it's a mutual or fair fight, it's easier for victims to leave, it's not as harmful as heterosexual domestic violence. So I'm really trying to examine how each of these three factors can influence how people view a mock domestic violence incident. So, in terms of looking at the results of what I found, first and foremost, I wanted to demonstrate that same-sex domestic violence was perceived as less serious than heterosexual domestic violence, which it was. You can see that effect here. So the same-sex condition, in terms of how participants rated how serious it was noticeably lower than how serious they rated the heterosexual domestic violence to be. And in terms of looking at the different predictors, I found that gender role attitudes did significantly predict how serious participants perceived the incident. So individuals who were higher in hostile sexism, so negative attitudes towards women, and higher traditional gender role beliefs, they perceived the same-sex incident to be less serious than those who had more egalitarian views. And also, I found this interesting two-way interaction between misconceptions about same-sex domestic violence and participant sex, which can be seen here. So essentially what happened was that this relationship wasn't moderated at all for males. However, for females who had a high endorsement of these misconceptions, they perceived the incident to be significantly less serious than females who were lower on these misconceptions about same-sex domestic violence. So the more they kind of bought into it's a fair fight, it's easier for victims to leave, the less serious they saw it to be. So my conclusions were that gender role attitudes do impact or influence how individuals perceive same-sex domestic violence to be, in terms of they see it as being less serious if they're higher in these traditional gender role beliefs, and that misconceptions about same-sex domestic violence, at least for females, does seem to be playing a role in how serious they perceive the incident to be. So as these misconceptions go up, people see it to be less serious, perceive the victim to be less hurt, the intervention that's needed in terms of should I call the police, should I see if this person needs help, all of those things were found to be lower, less likely the participants would report doing that if they were higher in these endorsement events. So, yeah.